Police are to be given greater powers to restrict protest by allowing them to consider the cumulative impact of repeated demonstrations. The measures follow pre-Palestine demonstrations, including an event in London on Saturday which saw almost 500 arrests. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood had repeated large-scale protests has caused considerable fear for the Jewish community. Also, on the evening news, Israel and Hamas are preparing for an indirect negotiations in Egypt on Monday as hopes build for a possible ceasefire in Gaza, after the Prime Minister over there said a hostage release could be announced in the coming days. And lawyers of Sean Diddy Combs are planning to appeal after the Germany-winning artist was sentenced to more than 4 years in prison on Friday.
This is STV Evening News with Charlotte Hawkins.
Good evening. Police are to be given greater powers to restrict protest by allowing them to consider the cumulative impact of repeated demonstrations. The measures follow frequent pro-Palestinian demonstrations, including an event in London on Saturday, which saw almost 500 arrests. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood said repeated large-scale protests had caused considerable fear for the Jewish community, as Neil Connery reports.
Yesterday's protests in London against Palestine Action being made a proscribed terror organisation saw more than 500 people arrested. The government says police forces will now be granted powers to put conditions on repeat protests like these, including ordering them to be held elsewhere.
When the police are placing restrictions or conditions on a protest, they are allowed to take into account cumulative disruption, that is to say the frequency of protests by particular groups and in particular places. So at the moment it's not been absolutely clear whether that is something they can take into account before they place conditions, but I will be changing the law to make it absolutely explicit.
There were also protests in Manchester yesterday. The government says it will amend 2 sections of the 1986 Public Order Act to allow police to impose conditions if needed. It will also review existing laws to make sure powers are sufficient. But organisers of yesterday's event have called the measures an extraordinary affront to democracy.
It's a fundamental right of British democracy, of any democratic system of governance, that a government such as the Labour government we have now, should be open to scrutiny, transparency and criticism.
In Bristol, around 100 anti-immigration protesters marched this afternoon. It's the 3rd time in 6 weeks. They were met by counter-demonstrators as police worked hard to keep order. Repeated protests like these could find conditions being imposed under the government's changes. Neil Connery, ITV News.
Israel and Hamas are preparing for an indirect negotiations in Egypt on Monday as hopes build for a possible ceasefire in Gaza after Benjamin Netanyahu said a hostage release could be announced in the coming days. Speaking during a televised speech late on Saturday, the Israeli Prime Minister said he had sent a delegation to Egypt to finalise technical details, adding that they aim to contain negotiations to a time frame of a few days. US President Donald Trump told CNN Hamas faces complete obliteration if it refuses to cede power in Gaza, as he pressured the militant group as well as Israel to move forward with his ceasefire negotiations. President Trump had welcomed Hamas's statement, accepting some elements of the US peace plan on Friday. Israel has repeatedly said it supports the new US deal. Under the 20-point plan, Hamas would release the remaining 48 Israeli hostages in Gaza, about 20 of whom are believed to be alive, within 3 days. The group would also have to disarm and relinquish their role in Gaza's government. Israeli troops would be required to withdraw from Gaza, but the plan states that its forces would maintain a buffer zone which could be within the territory itself. Well, our political correspondent Robert Peston is here with us now. The bombing in Gaza continues. What has Trump said about this? Well, Charlotte, Trump has repeatedly ordered Israel to stop bombing Gaza, but residents and local hospitals said strikes continued across the territory on Sunday. At least 8 people were killed on Sunday in multiple strikes in Gaza City, according to Shifa Hospital, which received the casualties. 4 of the people were shot dead near an aid distribution site on the southern city of Rafah, according to Nessa Hospital. The Israeli military group said it was not involved in the shooting and did not immediately comment on the strikes. We're on the brink and we don't know whether one will die of a strike or starvation, but Mahmoud Hassan, a Palestinian father sheltering in a tent in Gaza City, has said, while certain bombings have actually stopped inside the Gaza Strip, there are no ceasefire in place at this in time. Israeli government spokesman Sasha Badrossin said Trump's proposal to already has the backing of Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu and the first of its kind to envisage how Gaza would be governed if fighting were to subside. In an official statement released on Friday, Hamas agreed to release all Israeli hostages in exchange for a cessation of hostilities and a complete withdrawal of troops from the Gaza Strip. The statement reads, in order to achieve a cessation of hostilities and a complete withdrawal of the Gaza Strip, the movement announced its agreement to release all Israeli prisoners, both living and dead, according to the exchange formula contained in President Trump's proposal, provided the field conditions for the exchange are met. In this context, the movement affirms its readiness to immediately enter into negotiations, though the mediators to discuss the details of this agreement. Trump has welcomed Hamas's statement, saying, "I believe they are ready for a lasting peace." The US president appears keen to deliver on pledges to end the war and return hostages ahead of the second anniversary of the October 7th, 2023 attack on Israel by Hamas-led militants. Okay, Robert Peston, thank you very much indeed. Well, still to come on the STV Evening News. Sean Diddy. Lawyers plan to appeal after Star sentenced to over 4 years in prison. We'll have that story and more when we come back after this very short break. Don't go away. Hello and welcome back. Tory party leader Kemi Badenoch has launched the Conservative Party conference in Manchester with an admission her party made mistakes in government. Addressing party members in the conference hall, she said, "We failed to bring numbers down and stop the boats. Let's be honest. Yes, we tried, but simply we didn't achieve enough." Kemi Badenoch says the Conservatives are up for a fight as their annual conference got underway in Manchester today, as our STV News correspondent Harry Horton reports.
With dire poll ratings, a local elections drubbing and defections to reform, it's been a miserable first year leading the Conservatives for Kemi Badenoch. As she addressed her members today, she admitted her party had made big mistakes while in power.
We failed to bring numbers down and stop the boats. Let's be honest. That happened on our watch. Yes, we tried, but put simply, we didn't achieve enough.
Kemi Badenoch is hoping to capture attention this week with policies that swing to the right.
We must leave the ECHR and repeal the Human Rights Act.
And she insisted the Conservatives can win the next election.
Yes, we have a mountain to climb, but we have a song in our hearts, and we are up for the fight.
Kemi Badenoch said a Tory government would deport 150,000 illegal immigrants a year. But when pressed on where they would go, she struggled to answer.
I'm tired of us asking all of these irrelevant questions about where should they go. They will go back to where they should do or another country, but they should not be here.
Some Conservatives would prefer another leader to Kemi Badenoch, but her allies remain loyal. Kemi's still the right person to turn this around for you?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, that question is ludicrous.
Is she still the right person to turn things around?
Yes, always was, always will be. Fantastic.
And many members don't want another contest.
Yeah, I don't think there's any need for leadership elections. We've had enough of those, so...
If they do that again, I think the Conservative Party is almost dead.
One figure looms larger than all others at this conference as Conservatives celebrate 100 years of Margaret Thatcher. The party is celebrating its past, but its future is very much uncertain. Well, this is Kemi Badenoch's first conference as party leader, but it could well be her final chance to turn things around. Yes, the Conservatives are still the official party of opposition, but things are really bad at the moment for them. Their poll ratings and electoral performance is pretty dire. We're going to see lots of policy announcements this week, a big shift to the right, but the worry among many Conservatives is that the party risks becoming irrelevant.
Well, we're going to have another very quick break. And after the break, we'll have the all-important weather forecast with Lucy Verisami. Stay tuned. See you in a moment. Hello and welcome back. It's time for the all-important weather forecast now. Lucy. Hopefully better after the weekend just gone. Yes, Sarah, it should be a lot better this week. Here's all the all-important weather forecast for you right now.
Good evening to you. A mixture of clear skies and cloud cover in the next few hours. Misty out there for some of us, together with some hill fog forming and a milder theme as we move into a new week. As we start the new day, clearer skies across England and Wales, misty low cloud elsewhere, some hill fog through Scotland, Cumbria and parts of Northern Ireland. The rain pulls away into the North Sea but stays quite soggy across the Western Highlands again. Further pulses of rain for the western side of Scotland. Otherwise, a drier start to the new week, but staying a little grey across northern and western counties with the misty low cloud slow to shift, cheering up a touch further east and through Northern Ireland later. Elsewhere, some lovely spells of autumn sunshine, just a little more cloud drifting through the southwest. And with a switch in the wind direction, temperatures doing quite well, a milder theme away from the breeze in the northwest. Highs of 20 or 21 degrees, both to the top and the tail end of the country as we head into the latter stages of the afternoon.
And finally, lawyers for Diddy Combs are planning to appeal after the Grammy-winning artist was sentenced to more than 4 years in prison on Friday. Combs was sentenced to 50 months of 4 years and 2 months in prison on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. US District Judge Aaron Submarian also fined Combs of $500,000, the maximum allowed. The sentencing comes 3 months after Combs was convicted of flying people across state lines for drug-fueled marathon sexual encounters. A jury acquitted the 55-year-old of racketeering, conspiracy and sex trafficking charges that could have carried a life sentence. However, the judge said the statute he has to follow requires him to consider the nature of the offences and his history. The judge said a lengthy sentence was needed to deterrence and that he was unconvicted that convinced that if Combs is released, these crimes won't happen again. Prosecutors has called for an 11-year sentence for Combs, who was convicted in July. Defence lawyer argues for him to be freed immediately after he spent more than a year in detention. They offered an atypical presentation at the sentencing hearing, reflecting Combs as a wealthy and philanthropic celebrity. On Friday, Combs addressed the court for the first time, having not spoken during his trial. Speaking to the court before his sentencing, Combs called his past behaviour disgusting, shameful and sick, apologising to the people he hurt, including his children. And there you have it. That is tonight's evening news. Mark Austin will be here with the news at 10. From all of us here though, have a wonderful evening. Bye bye.